It's Closing Time is an engaging and informative conversation between RentSpree CEO Michael Lucarelli and some of the most accomplished and important voices in the real estate industry. This podcast is brought to you by RentSpree, your premier end-to-end rental management software from listing to lease.
Hello and welcome to It's Closing Time. I'm your host, Michael Lucarelli, the CEO of RentSpree, and I'm really excited to be hosting this podcast where I get to have insightful and meaningful conversations with some of the leading voices in real estate. In this episode, we'll be talking to Jonathan Lickstein, managing broker of Location Real Estate, as well as a coach, mentor, and certified instructor. We'll be discussing the work he's doing at Location, as well as the role of technology in real estate and where he sees the industry headed in 2022. So, Jonathan, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Well, we've known each other for quite a while now, a couple of years, I think. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to dive into first is a little bit about Location. You've done a great job building that up. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the brokerage, where it came from, and how the outlook has been so far.
I appreciate that. The company Location here, we've gone under a big growth spurt over the last 12 months. I mean, you see that across real estate, and just over the 11 years that we've been in operation, actually it's 12 now, geez. Over the 12 years, we went from being a 17 agent firm just locally in our small community, all the way up through we're approaching 2,700 agents across 3 states. And it's just really exciting time to be in real estate. And when you focus on making those with you coming along on the journey more successful and more enjoyable with the industry and their day-to-day operations, it's a beautiful thing to watch people come together for a bigger picture in such a individualized industry.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think stands out for me, and I think what has maybe contributed to Location's success, is just your ability to act as a mentor and a coach. And so we actually ran into each other at the Florida Realtors Expo a couple months ago. And it was striking to me because I think one of your agents was kind of talking to us at our booth. And I think right now, you have over 2,500 agents?
Yeah, we're approaching 2,700 now.
So you're approaching 2,700, and the one agent, you seem to really be very personable. You even offered to just reach out and connect with them individually to give them some feedback and to help them grow their business. So can you tell me a little bit more about what that mentorship and coaching means and how you have been able to carry that through and how that's led to the success of Location?
Absolutely. So it goes back to why you do what you do. I love people. I love interacting with people. I love hearing about their life and their trials and their successes and their hardships. And it's fun to be part of that journey and experience life on so many different levels with so many different perspectives. You really gain a different understanding. I got into real estate because I loved people. I loved the search, the hunt, the find of that perfect home, and being part of that emotional roller coaster with families. So I get to do it on a different level now. And I take pride and really enjoy that day-to-day clawing and fighting as an agent, getting through a really tough marketplace, being part of that emotional roller coaster. That's the closest I get anymore. And it's great. And everyone has a different story. So any given day, any given person.
And for someone like you who's become so successful and really helping out a lot of people, I mean, how do you think about time management when you do have this many agents and you probably have just a ton of balls up in the air at any given time? What are some of the things that you do that help you to manage your time so you can allocate to where it's needed, helping the people that's needed, taking care of everything that's needed? I think this is a skill that pretty much everyone can benefit from, and might be helpful to hear maybe a little bit about how you organize your time, how you manage it, and how you can prioritize where you're focusing.
Absolutely. Something really important, regardless of the industry that you're in, is that work-life home balance, right? You can work and just work yourself to the bone and just have nothing and miss so many meaningful parts of life. I'm married. I have 3 kids of ages brand newborn, 9 weeks old, all the way up through 13. And it's a big difference. And you can spend so much time working and focusing on your business, but miss out of life's most beautiful piece. So by spending that comfortable balance, you're recharging yourself each day, take that time on your own. But when you're at work, the most important thing I can tell you is it's not about you. You can only do so much as one person, and finding good people to surround yourself, sometimes even at a risk, hiring ahead of the need before you run yourself to that point, getting somebody with you, allow you to grow to bigger heights. So finding good people around you is probably the best piece of advice. If you're a good agent, you could be a great agent. If you're a great agent, you could double what you're doing and affect other people's lives at the same time.
I think that's a great point, and it can be challenging to know really like the time to time it properly and know when to bring on people, like you said before the need arises. Because if you wait until the time when you need it, you're just too late at that point.
Exactly.
How big is the staff there at location that you guys have right now?
We're at 25 now. Started as just the two of us.
And you are right now operating in Florida, is that correct? And there's a couple other states, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Florida, Georgia, and Colorado, and there's a couple more in the southeast here on the horizon.
How has it been rolling out into different states? How have you managed that? Talking about hiring the right people, that can be challenging to be able to hire the right people that you know you can delegate to and all that. I'm sure you've done that, but how has it been expanding to other states and building your like admin team and management team accordingly?
It's all about having the right setup, the infrastructure from day one. If you go into a new area and you kind of just stumble your way through it and try and figure it out, yeah, you will in the end, but it's going to cost you quite a bit in overhead trying to get to that point. Think about how you're going to do it before you do it. And I mean, way before. Set your systems up to be remote. With today's day and age and how people are working more remote, the old brick and mortar office and going in and sitting there for floor duty and leads, that stuff's just not there anymore. It's not necessary. So we actually manage everything through the main headquarters in Florida for all the states currently. But there's a local involved broker for mentoring, guidance, education, compliance, all the stuff that's needed state by state. But centralizing the operation, regardless of industry, is efficiency for growth.
And I would say, even though you have the operations centralized in Florida, you do have more of a tech-centric focus as well, kind of across the board. And that's probably what's helped your success as well, as integrating technology and everything. Can you share what spurred that focus? And then how do you see technology influencing your operations and even the industry as a whole?
So as an industry as a whole needs to get more and more focused on technology and data and how to leverage that data for their benefit. What can they do with that in order to increase revenue potential or capture rates, or even just to unify and assist the customers even more? But as a company, we started day one with being a very technology focused company. And it all comes down to, what is real estate really? Is it a sales industry? I don't think so. It's more relationship and communication based. So we wanted to create a platform for agents, kind of like the Facebook of real estate, where realtors would have their own professional profiles and interact, kind of like realtor.com, but in a closed environment. So we initially built that website as a method of communicating and gaining assistance from other agents, helping each other out, referrals, things like that. And that's where the intranet, or the sphere, we call it the sphere actually, of the operations was really created as the one-stop shop for everything you're going to need for your business. So that's really focused there. And as far as expansion, how technology assists is, regardless of what happens, we were built for the pandemic and weathering that storm before it happened. We were able to send all of our staff home and support and guide our agents in a very stressful time in the world, especially in the industry, and how we could help protect them and how we can foresee things happening, and to be calm and just kind of get through things, stay home, stay safe until we're ready to do so. And then let's go back to business. Never skip a beat with it.
So that's the intranet. It's called the Sphere that you guys have, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And you had that in place prior to the pandemic?
Correct. That was the first piece before we had our first agent. That was the first thing we built.
That is pretty forward thinking for sure. And that really comes in handy to have that kind of infrastructure in place And I remember like a lot of the time when the pandemic hit, most companies, they had to scramble and put communication tools and organizational softwares into place. But by being able to have that ahead of time, that's definitely like very helpful for sure. Are you seeing like good adoption with that? And like, what are some of the key features of the Sphere that people are utilizing, and how does it help really connect people and build business? Because like you said, in the end of the day, the technology, and I would agree, it's probably like more of like a means to an end, right? That helps to really develop and cultivate those relationships. So what are some of the ways that this internet and other tools can really actually help with that?
So the main piece is creating a user experience that is efficient and useful. So it can be fast to get into, but there's not a whole lot there, or there's a whole lot there, but it's really hard to get there. If you create a positive user experience with information that is useful to an agent, we're speaking on the agent side, not so much the consumer. It is a whole lot easier to go there than remember the 8 different places that they need to go
Yeah.
in order to get something done, like writing a contract here, e-signature goes there, tenant screening goes in one spot, or buyer pre-approval goes in one spot, insurance rates into another spot. Yeah, I mean, you've got all different steps along the way that are required, whether it's a tenant, a buyer, a seller, that you have to go into and access and be efficient. So if you can create an experience where all of this is right in front of me, I don't have to shop around, I don't have to investigate, it's been investigated for me, and I get there with a click, not a separate login. I'm inside of it, I'm going to it, I'm getting everything I need in one spot, and it ties together. Whether it's the tenant screening like we have with you guys, it's super efficient. Our pre-approvals with mortgage companies are all tied into the Sphere. With one click, you're getting people that you know have a value in your customer's best interest at heart. So it just creates a very seamless experience for both the agent, and then if the agent has a seamless experience, then who benefits? It's the consumer.
That logic makes a ton of sense. And I think you mentioned putting really that technology where in a place where it's accessible, it's at people's fingertips. And that really makes it easy for agents to succeed. And it does translate to the consumer. But I would imagine there's still some coaching and like training that you guys probably still need to provide in certain cases. And can you speak maybe a little bit on the coaching and training that you guys provide? And I think like when we spoke last fall, I think you mentioned that location had opened up a real estate school, and just wanted to kind of see how that's going and what kind of resources you guys are providing to agents in addition to those like accessible tools and software resources.
Awesome. So yes, we did start a real estate school. And again, that was with the focus of needing an electronic or remote way to do things. So many people get their real estate license sitting in a classroom. I could never do that. I mean, not even for my pre-license when I first got mine. I just couldn't. So we created an online real estate school where everything from pre-license, post-license, becoming a broker, and ongoing continuing education is all available. And again, that's accessible through the Sphere, but also out to the members of the public, anyone getting a license, et cetera. So that's accessible. And of course, our agents have a bit of a benefit, a bit of a discount through us, but that's part of being within the circle, right? So moving on, education and coaching wise. So new agents are a really big part of our marketplace right now. There's been approximately 1.5 to 2 times as many people getting licensed as we saw the year before and the year before that. So there's an incredible amount of greenness to our marketplace. So a big focus has been placed on new agents and really a boot camp or crash course of what they'll need to be able to effectively represent someone through the rental process and writing an offer, a screening package and application, through writing a lease, all of the standard forms and stuff you can go through here. But then also working with a buyer, don't be caught off guard. You need to be able to have a good basis of knowledge before going out into the world, or you're going to go after the same old saying, what's the hardest part of a real estate transaction? The other agent you have to work with. So we try to keep that to an absolute minimum and make sure people are educated to go out into the marketplace. As far as coaching, we try to get mentors to work with all of our new agents coming into the marketplace. Obviously, you have to want help to get help, right?
Yeah.
So if someone wants to go into that mentorship program, we have our top producing list from the year prior, and we ask all of them to mentor one new agent in the coming year to bring them in and make it professional.
Do you incentivize them in any way to take on that mantle of mentorship?
Of course, yeah. So there is a mentorship program we established. It's a 3 transaction agreement, and it starts. There's a higher split on the first deal, graduating, going down, and the mentor gets a piece of that commission, as does the company, as part of kind of facilitating, keeping relationships together, and keeping people accountable to not leave them by the wayside.
That sounds awesome, and I can't tell you how rare it is to see someone that has really like an infrastructure and organized framework in place for really like training new agents from A to Z, it seems like. So kudos to you
It takes
guys.
somebody who wants the help to get the help, though. It's there, but they need to want it, right? But that's our industry. You need to do it on your own. It's very individual.
How do you typically handle when you guys may have agents that they maybe aren't seeking the help that they need and maybe they don't realize that they need it? How do you guys handle those situations?
So there's consistent touches. I mean, we're reaching out to them in their first 6 months. I think we have on our CRM programmed to hit them about 27 times over, just to ensure that they're progressing or they're taking advantage of what's there. A big problem with brokerages are an agent gets in, registered or licensed or transferred into the company, and there's just so much information that it's overwhelming and they end up doing none of it and taking advantage of none of it. So awareness is a big part of it, and just reaching out. What are your plans? What are you doing? Well, have you heard of this? Here's something that might interest you, or here's something, are you doing this? How they're organizing themselves or how they're marketing themselves to ensure that they are engaged and at least focusing what their goals are for their own focus. Some people just want a license and have it for whenever they do something, and that's fine. That's okay. Yep. But they need to be able to be engaged in order to take advantage of it.
And we'll get into a little bit on the kind of macro dynamics of the industry, but we just got back from Florida, and it's been really fascinating to see just how much real estate has blown up in the state. Just over the past couple of years, I think the Florida Association, it just became the largest realtor association in the U.S. I think like somewhat recently. Is that correct?
Yeah, just happened.
It's a lot of agents, a lot of activity, and hey, it's a great place to live for sure.
Business is good. Not gonna lie.
So before we get into looking at what we are thinking about real estate for 2022, I just wanted to break things up, and we'll go into our segment called Meet in the Middle. So I'll ask you 3 questions, and we're looking for kind of quick rapid fire answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right. So what's the number 1 book recommendation for real estate professionals?
God, there's a lot out there. I'm not a big reader. I'm much more of an audiobook person. All right. So this is one, it's not per se real estate. It's a book that was recommended to me by someone I met in the past couple of years in my leadership journey with the association. And she recommended this book, and it came out of left field from what I understand of her personality. But it puts the focus back on constant growth in every aspect of your life: personal, physical, business, and relational. So every day there's a different focus, and it was just a very engaging listen. So maybe not so much a book, but it's short and can really be enjoyed. It's called Make Blank Happen. I don't know if you want me to say that word.
Make blank happen. I think we can all use our imagination on that one.
Starts with an S. Make S happen. And it was very engaging and fantastic. I'm one, I like to hear people speaking very real and direct and unfiltered. Right. And he gave that to me, and it was very motivating, both at home and with business. I've listened to it like 3 times actually since I first did about 6 months ago. You should take a listen, Michael. It's great.
I'll definitely check it out. Make blank happen. There you have it. So the second question: what's the most underrated part about the business of real estate?
The most underrated part about the business of real estate. I gotta say it's freedom. There's a lot of people who want to come in and work part-time. That's not really per se what I'm talking about. What I love is in a very individualized and self-focused industry where you're only making money when you're making sales.
Yeah.
So many people say I'm married to my business or I'm tied to my business and I can't travel. How do you be able to travel? And really, I think that's an underrated aspect because people follow along that standard word of not being able to do so, whereas they could set themselves up in a way to grow bigger than what they are by themselves, establishing a team, a partnership, a group, whatever, and relying on those around them to not lose their income while they're able to travel and still have more of that personal life balance. That's an underrated part. I think that is very generalized at most, and people can take more advantage of that.
Yeah. And then the last one here, what is your big prediction for 2022?
The 2022 real estate market. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at it. The leasing side of things is very strong at the moment, and it's going to continue to do so. I don't see so many renters coming into the marketplace to make it even more challenging. I think it's going to stay pretty much a status quo. Leasing rates have stayed high. I think they're going to continue being high until we start to see more of a trend on the sales side, the purchasing and sales side for residential homes. Not so much focused on the condo market. I think the condo market is more people that are kind of waiting to buy the single family home. It's the in-between or the consolation place. Most people are looking for single family homes in space, considering everything that we've gone through and who knows what's going to happen in this uncertain future, this new world that we're living in, quote unquote. But I see the residential sales market kind of flattening off. I don't say a price drop. I don't think there's going to be a crash of the market. We've had too healthy of growth. I think prices are getting a little bit elevated at this current point. Unfortunately, I'm trying to buy a house right now, and that's not going to be a great time to do so. So we're going to wait. But a lot of people are in the same position where they want to move, but they don't need to move. So they're going to sit on the side, and that demand is not really going to go away unless there is something massive where there's this crazy supply that balances out the demand. We're not going to see a crash. I don't think they'll keep going up. I think we're going to plateau right now. And as interest rates start to creep up a little, that's going to help it taper off into a very healthy marketplace. Not so much as sellers or buyers. It'll be balanced for a little while. But I don't see prices dropping for 12 to 24 months at all, which means I'm not buying a house.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I'm kind of looking for a place now too, and it's a little bit expensive right now for sure. So yeah, kind of good chance to wait. I'm looking more into the landscape for 2022. I know you mentioned, I think you said like a kind of like a new world or a new state of things, and there are, I think, like a lot of dynamics that go into that. One of which being workforce mobility and people just having a lot more flexibility and remote working and everything like that. And really, I think that's like overall positively impacted real estate when you have more people like moving around. But I'm just wondering if you see it the same and if you think that that type of stuff is going to have long lasting impacts on the market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've seen an increase in various industries of people able to work at home. And that has given them the freedom to move around into different places. There were 3 houses sold on my block in the last 3 months. And all of those families coming in are still working in other states. One in New York, one in Massachusetts, and one from Kansas, oddly enough. But they took advantage to move and are working remotely while still living in that area, working in that area. Salaries in different places go with the cost of living, typically, and you can earn New York money while living in South Florida. That's why you see this influx of cash buyers. They paid off their mortgage in New York, are coming down here with the excess to buy an entire house.
Yep.
And that just puts in perspective. I think that's going to continue to be strong. And what's a more desirable place to move to than Florida or Colorado? Come on, these are great areas to relocate to. So you see a lot of population going to those areas, and I hope construction keep up.
And for some of our listeners that are not in California or I'm sorry, not in Florida or familiar with Florida, there are also some tax benefits as well to relocate there.
There's a few tax benefits, yeah, a few.
And then kind of as we start closing up here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your service. I think you had served previously on a couple boards. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I try to be involved as much as humanly possible. So I sit on the National Association Board of Directors as a representative of top 75 large firms in the country. At the state level, also on the board of directors with the Florida Association of Realtors. Um, it's tremendous to be involved and be at the forefront of what's going on and understand and really represent the industry and represent the company and take that information back. It's invaluable. It has been.
And are there any kind of hot issues that you guys are kind of working on or planning for 2022 or advocacy areas to focus in on that
Are
you
you
want to share?
referring to more the association side or the company side?
On the association side.
Okay. I'm actually not supposed to speak to that. So I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one.
No worries, no
I have
worries.
to defer to the advocacy and the leadership that's there. Where they're part of a greater piece. So I would defer that to them.
Don't want to violate any NDAs or anything like that over here.
You got me.
Cool. Well, Jonathan, for the It's Closing Time podcast, I want to thank you again so much for being here and huge congrats on all the success that you've had. And thank you for working with us for a number of years now at RentSpree. Before we go, I wanted to share with our audience as well, if you could possibly tell us all the thing that you remember most about the first time that you closed a deal, which is obviously consistent with the name of the podcast. It's Closing Time. So can you share with us maybe a little tidbit about maybe the first deal or even the win that you closed, if you could think back to that? It'd be great for everyone to hear that.
I started my real estate career in a very different way than most people. I was living in a third world country in Honduras, a little island off the coast called Roatan. And I kind of just fell into it. Like real estate found me. I met my now wife while I was on vacation and somehow fell into real estate with this company down there doing property management. So my first deal came actually maybe a year and a half after starting property management. I got my license. There's a whole process there. I think it cost me $34. Got my real estate license there. And all of a sudden you're taking around consumers from around the world, Italy, Europe, United States, that are spending cash, no financing available there, spending cash to buy places on this island in a third world country. So I still remember there's one customer that was looking for a property in this area was called West End. And we went down this bumpy road, and they really wanted to buy this place, but the road down the beach was so bumpy, especially in my pickup truck, that it bounced so much, she actually got car sick before we got to the place. Long story short, she didn't buy down that road, but she bought down another. And at closing, when I got everything signed, she handed me a little gift basket. And in the gift basket was car sickness medication to give to my next customer. I had to show properties down that street. So I will never forget that. There are so many stories with so many people. If you connect and make relationships, but the start or the finish, it's always fun.
That's such a huge lesson in building and establishing relationships that, hey, just like little gestures that are really meaningful can make a long-lasting impact, no matter who you are or who you're dealing with. So again, Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. This has been episode number 3 of It's Closing Time with RentSpree. I hope for all of our listeners that you've enjoyed this conversation. As a reminder, you can visit our website, rentspree.com, to learn about our service. And also you can follow us on our social platforms at RentSpree. And lastly, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, It's Closing Time with RentSpree. And don't forget to check out Location Real Estate with Jonathan as well. So thanks everyone and have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.